If you have ever looked at those aggressive, heavy-duty combat knives with the sawback spine, the lanyard hole, and the finger ring guard, and wondered how on earth they are made, you are in the right place. We are building this legendary blade from absolute scratch. No kits, no shortcuts, just raw metal, a lot of sparks, and some serious workshop magic. Before we dive into the grinding, take a look at the finished product. This isn't just a sharp piece of metal. It is a fully functional piece of art. Notice the beautiful rainbow and deep purple temper colors on the blade, the aggressive serrations along the spine, and the perfectly machined black handle. It looks like something straight out of an action movie, and today, I am going to show you exactly how we get there. But first, we have to start at the very beginning, with a simple piece of flat steel and a paper template. The first step in any great knife build is the layout. Precision here saves you a massive headache later. We take our detailed paper blueprint and carefully lay it over the flat bar of steel. Using a heavy-duty permanent marker, we trace the exact profile of the knife. This includes the main blade shape, the handle tang, and the specific geometry of the guard. Once the outline is perfectly traced, it is time to make some noise. We secure the steel bar firmly in the bench vise. Safety is paramount here, so gloves and eye protection are absolutely non-negotiable. Firing up the angle grinder with a fresh cutting disc, we begin the rough cut. This is where the magic starts to happen. Showers of bright orange sparks fly across the workshop as we carefully follow the marker lines, cutting away the excess steel. We aren't trying to be perfectly precise with the angle grinder. We just want to get the general shape of the knife freed from the raw stock. It is loud, it is messy, and it is incredibly satisfying. Once the rough profile is cut out, the piece looks a bit jagged and raw. That is completely normal. To refine the shape, we move over to the belt sander. This is where the knife really starts to look like a knife. By pressing the rough steel against the moving abrasive belt, we smooth out the grinder marks, perfect the curves of the blade, and ensure the tang is perfectly straight. The belt sander gives us the control we need to bring the profile to its final, clean dimensions. Now that the basic shape is established, it is time to add the tactical details that make this knife so unique. We lay the detailed template back onto the blade. This template shows us exactly where the sawback teeth need to go, as well as the placement for the lanyard hole. Using a center punch and a hammer, we carefully mark the metal. This creates a small indentation that will guide our drill bit and prevent it from wandering off-center. Next, we move to the drill press to tackle the sawback spine. Instead of trying to cut the teeth out with a grinder right away, which could easily cause the thin metal to warp or the cutting disc to shatter, we use a much smarter technique. We drill a series of small, evenly spaced holes along the spine of the knife, right where the base of the teeth will be. This requires a steady hand and plenty of cutting fluid to keep the drill bit cool and lubricated. With the relief holes drilled, we use the template and a marker to color in the negative space between the holes. This gives us a clear visual guide for the next step. Back at the vise, we use the angle grinder again, but this time with a thin cutting disc. We carefully cut down into the metal, connecting the drilled holes. Because we drilled those relief holes first, the grinder drops right into them, making it incredibly easy to cut out the sharp, aggressive sawback teeth without ruining the blade. It is a game changer for precision. While the blade is still secured, we tackle the lanyard hole near the tip. Using a hand drill equipped with a sharp metal bit and plenty of cutting oil, we drill a large, clean hole through the thick steel. This hole isn't just for looks. It is a crucial survival feature for attaching a lanyard or paracord in the field. With the blade details mostly finished, we need to fabricate the finger guard ring. We take a small piece of round metal stock, drill a hole through the center, and then use a small handheld sander and a file to shape it into a perfect circle. We heat the metal slightly with a blowtorch to make it more malleable. Then carefully file and sand it until it is smooth and perfectly sized to fit over the knife's tang. This little ring is what gives the knife that classic, secure combat grip. Finally, we move on to the most critical part of the blade's geometry, the bevels. A knife is only as good as its edge. We use a ruler and a marker to draw precise bevel lines along the length of the blade. Taking it back to the belt sander, we carefully tilt the blade at a consistent angle and grind the primary bevels. This thins out the edge, transitioning the thick spine down to a razor-sharp cutting edge. We also use a hand file to touch up the sawback teeth and ensure every angle is crisp and clean. The blade is now fully shaped, profiled and beveled, but it is still just raw, gray steel. It needs a handle, and it needs to be heat treated. So, let's move on to the handle. We take a solid block of hardwood, trace our template, and drill a deep hole straight through the center to fit the knife's tang. To get that perfect cylindrical shape without a wood lathe, we use a clever workshop hack. We chuck the wood into a drill and spin it against the belt sander. In seconds, that blocky piece of wood is turned into a smooth, perfectly round handle. But a smooth handle is slippery, so we clamp it in the vise using a threaded rod, mark out our grip lines, and use a flat file to carve deep, aggressive grooves for a locked-in grip. Now for the most critical step, heat treatment. This is what transforms soft steel into a hard, edge-holding blade. We heat the knife in a DIY brick forge until the steel reaches critical temperature. Then, with a dramatic flare-up, we plunge the glowing blade into a bath of oil. This rapid cooling, or quenching, locks the steel's molecular structure, making it incredibly hard. But quenching leaves the blade covered in black scale and makes it as brittle as glass. Back at the workbench, we clamp the knife down and use hand files to strip away the scale, revealing the bare metal. Then, we take a rotary tool with a polishing wheel and buff the entire blade until it shines like a mirror. To fix the brittleness, we temper the blade. We actually use a standard kitchen oven for this. Baking the knife at a specific temperature draws out the internal stresses, making the blade tough enough to survive heavy use without snapping. As a bonus, this process creates those stunning rainbow temper colors you see on the finished blade. Finally, it's assembly time. We mix up a strong 2-part epoxy, coat the tang, and slide our custom-carved wooden handle into place, finishing it off with the metal pommel. And here is the final result. Look at that finish. The deep purples and blues of the temper, the aggressive sawback, the custom finger guard, and the perfectly grooved black handle. It went from a rusty flat bar to an absolute masterpiece. If you enjoyed this build, make sure to like, subscribe, and let me know what we should forge next.